A child gets kicked out of class just because they have a Jewish surname. A family is burned alive in a medieval marketplace over rumors that they poisoned the wells. A physics professor, the pioneer behind the atomic bomb, had to flee. Because all of Europe had no place left for his people, they were chased out from Egypt, Rome, Paris, Madrid, Berlin, as if they carried a curse. Fast forward to today. Did you know that 6 out of the 10 richest people on Wall Street are Jewish? Yet, across the world, Jewish symbols are defaced, burned, and even banned. Why is that? How can a group that makes up only 0.2% of the global population be labeled the masterminds controlling the world? Are they truly dangerous? Or just exceptionally smart? Jews are not criminals. But in Roman eyes, they were rebels. In the Church's eyes, they were the deniers of Christ. In Nazi eyes, they were germs to be exterminated. They were blamed for the death of Jesus, accused of betraying humanity for money. And whenever the world faced crises, Jews were the first scapegoats. This isn't just ancient history. Today, Jews are still being targeted and killed in modern Europe because some believe Jews control the banks. Jews control Hollywood. Jews are behind every war. But what few know is, they have been expelled over 100 times throughout history. They lived in exile for over 2,000 years, yet preserved their religion, culture, and language. And in despair, they reinvented themselves, creating the nation of Israel in a desert, surrounded by hostile neighbors. Maybe what the world fears is not a conspiracy, but their relentless survival, their unstoppable intellect, their unbreakable faith, and a history so deep that people choose to fear, then hate them. This is not just a story about Jews, it's a story about how humanity treats what it cannot control. Welcome to the Book of Elites, where rare knowledge is decoded. Secrets of power, finance, war, and the human mind. Each page is a door to the world of those who operate behind the shadows. If you're ready to think like the elites, subscribe and enter a realm of knowledge beyond dreams. They're not hated because they're evil. They're feared because they know too much. When a group holds what the masses cannot understand, they get labeled conspirators, heretics, cults, even devils in human form. Jews are one of the most labeled peoples in history. Not because of weapons or wars, but because they keep the books, the words, and intellect as their lifeblood. During the Middle Ages, most Europeans were illiterate. Books were controlled by the church. Meanwhile, Jewish children learned to read at age 3 and memorize the Torah from infancy. They believed when people forget how to read, they become slaves. The result? Though banned from owning land and holding political power, they turned to finance, law, and medicine. Field society, then considered unclean but indispensable. Jews became the only moneylenders in Christian empires where charging interest was a sin. When kings ran out of money, they borrowed from Jews. When wars needed funding, they turned to Jews. But after victory or unrest, kings turned their backs and blamed the moneylenders. They became perfect scapegoats. In 1290, King Edward I expelled all Jews from England, calling them usurers. Their property was confiscated, books burned. But what was burned wasn't just parchment. It was part of humanity's knowledge. The Book of Elites does not just tell history, it dusts off the layers of time to reveal knowledge kept in few hands is always feared. And fear over time turns into collective hatred. So, who is truly scary? The sword bearer? Or the keeper of the books? Religion can be faith, or the reason to burn a people alive. Step into a medieval Christian church, and you'll see familiar images. Jesus crucified and the executioners. The Jews not by chance. Faith was weaponized through images, stories, doctrine. For over 1,000 years, the church spread a simple but dangerous message. Jews killed Jesus. They are the cursed people from the Old Testament. Every living Jew today is a descendant of the traitor of the faith. So whenever society fell into chaos, plague, famine, drought, mobs attacked Jewish quarters. They smashed doors, burned homes, lynched, believing it was God's will. Little known historical twist. Jesus himself was Jewish. His 12 apostles were Jewish. Christianity was born from within Judaism and was itself persecuted by Rome as a cult. But this truth was erased. In an illiterate world, storytellers decide the villains. In 1543, Martin Luther, founder of Protestantism, wrote a book on the Jews and their lies, calling for burning Jewish synagogues, confiscating Torah scrolls, expelling Jews from Christian lands. This book was cited nearly 400 years later by Adolf Hitler. The harsh truth: Jews were made the symbol of sin, not because they were evil, but because they were different inside a dominant faith. If you don't eat like them, worship like them, believe like them, you will never be God's people. You become the outsider. And in the Book of Elites, we learn to listen to history from both sides, even the side burned, silenced, and forced to live in shadows for centuries. The world does not hate the weak. It hates the strong who didn't ask permission to be strong. When Jews were banned from owning land, joining armies, government, or religious academies, they took alternative paths. They studied math. They wrote books. They became doctors, printers, financiers, unworthy professions. In feudal society, and in those narrow streets, they built their empire quietly. Banking. Jews were not banned from lending with interest, unlike Christians. They became financial advisors to kings, merchants, and the church, yet without legal protection. When things were good, they were financial advisors. When things went bad, they were called bloodsuckers. Media and publishing. They did not control churches, but they printed, translated, and published books. They preserved history in ways erased from the mainstream. Many Jewish immigrants in America founded Hollywood, a place where imagination replaced oppression. From there, they told stories to the world, but were accused of controlling global media. Science and education. Jews win Nobel Prizes at rates hundreds of times higher than average. Einstein, Freud, Oppenheimer, Jonas Salk, Richard Feynman, all Jewish. They laid the foundation of modern physics, psychology, medicine, and even the atomic bomb. Yet success is distorted by the masses into hidden power. Why are they rich? Why are they so smart? Why are there people everywhere? From this, countless conspiracies arise. Jews control central banks. Jews started the world wars. Jews created the Freemasons to rule. And when people need a scapegoat, they don't look up to nobles or corporations. They look at the quiet man in a black hat walking down the street and say, it's them. The survivors of the ovens. No longer allowed to cry, now they carry guns. In 1945, the world was horrified by the Auschwitz camps. 6 million Jews were murdered in the Holocaust, a planned industrial genocide. The world mourned. The world bowed. Just 3 years later, in 1948, Israel was born. A Jewish nation on ancient land, a dream preserved for 2,000 years. But that dream brought a nightmare. The land was home to Palestinians for centuries, and they were not asked. War broke out. 7 Arab nations declared war on Israel the day it was born. Israel, young and without air force or tanks, yet won. Not once, many times. The result? Israel expanded territory, built walls and settlements. To Jews, it was survival. To many in the Muslim world, it was invasion. The image of Jews as Nazi victims became the image of Israel oppressing Palestinians. In the social media age, every image, a destroyed home, a crying child, an Israeli soldier firing tear gas, becomes evidence in a new anti-Jewish propaganda war. It's no longer about killing Jesus or controlling money. It's, they take land, They kill children. They are a new apartheid. Attacks on Jews. Spike in France, Germany, the US whenever Israel has conflicts. Synagogues vandalized. Students bullied. Businesses boycotted. Though unrelated to Israel, a bitter truth. Jews are hated for having a nation. Just as they were hated for not having one. In exile, they were feared as wandering without a homeland. With a homeland, they're blamed for building on others' suffering. No matter what they do, it's wrong. Existing itself is judged. The Book of Elites doesn't defend anyone. We don't paint Israel white or Palestine black. We just state a harsh truth. History is not simple, not one-sided, and no one stays a hero forever. A people hunted for 2,000 years. When they rise up, they're blamed like those who burned them. History doesn't repeat, but it often whispers. If you've come this far, you've realized Jews aren't hated for any single crime. They're hated for what the world hasn't been ready to accept about them. They hold intellect when the world was still lost in superstition. They build economy when others sought gods in famine. They keep books when the powerful burned libraries. They hold identity when forced to convert, rename, or kneel. And when they succeed, rise above. People don't ask, how did they do it? They ask, what's their conspiracy? They're called manipulators, threats, devils in disguise, simply because they didn't disappear as history expected. Not only Jews have been hated. Black people were enslaved for low intelligence. Muslims were called born terrorists. Asians were discriminated during pandemics as bad eaters. History doesn't hate a single group. It uses fear as a tool to divide humanity, weaving enemies from what we don't understand. Looking back at the Jewish story, we see not just a people. We see the price of difference, the price of refusal to bow, the price of knowledge that defies power, and sometimes the price of surviving too long. In the Book of Elites, every story ends not with a period, but a question. Do you dare to look at history not through prejudice but with wisdom? Do you realize that every time the world needs a scapegoat, it chooses a silent minority? And the final question, if you live differently, think differently, understand more, are you sure you won't be hated too? Leave your comment below, not to argue, but to engage, like minds thinking in a fearful world. The world always needs someone to blame. History, from religion, politics to media, is very good at pointing fingers at others. Today, it's the Jews. Tomorrow it could be anyone. The reason isn't them, it's the fear inside us. Fear of difference. Fear of intellect we can't control. Fear of someone living beyond our limits. The Book of Elites doesn't praise or blame anyone. We dig to awaken one truth. Knowledge doesn't follow the crowd. And if you've watched this far, maybe you're not the crowd. Keep stepping into forgotten realms of knowledge, where history has no spotlight, where questions are scarier than answers. Don't forget to leave a comment. Not to argue, but to prove you still think. When many have stopped, why was a people making up 0.2% of the world expelled over 100 times? Why are Jews, Nobel laureates, Hollywood founders, desert nation builders, hated for thousands of years? In this video, the Book of Elites will take you on a journey to uncover the deep religious reasons Jews were seen as faith betrayers. History distorted. From survivors to scapegoats, the truth about finance, media, and knowledge. They hold why the Israel-Palestine conflict fuels hate like never before. This is not just a story about Jews. It's a lesson for anyone who ever dared to be different. Watch the full video and don't forget to leave your thoughtful comment.